Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Good morning, devotees. I'm actually surprised to see so many of you here. I was thinking, right, everybody would be exhausted from Gaur Purnim and needing to recover. But so good to see all of you. My name is Manjari Gopika Devi Dasi, and today we will be hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. And then we'll focus on verse 5. And this verse 5 is actually very famous. I think you'll recognize it once we get to it. We're starting a brand new chapter. Chapter 5 is entitled Prahlad Maharaj, the Saintly Son of Hiranyakashipu. Before we begin, I ask for your blessings, that I may speak something pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, to my spiritual master, and to all of the devotees. Let us begin by chanting the invocation prayers together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotanam devim sarvasvatim vyasyam tato jayam nadirayet nashta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Very cool. All right, so we shall begin now. Chapter 5, reading verses 1 through 5. Maldrashtadyumna Prabhu pulls that up. Just a brief little recap of how we got here to this new chapter. So in the previous chapter, Narada Muni is speaking to Maharaj Yudhisthira, and Narada Muni elaborates on Prahlad's many wonderful qualities, which prompts Maharaj Yudhisthira to ask him, well, how could any parent be so cruel to such a wonderful child that you have described to me? You know, essentially, where did things go wrong here? So today we're hearing the answer. And maybe we can pass around the microphone, read verses 1 through 5, and then we'll come back to verse 5. So yeah, there's a nice long summary there.
The great sage Narada Muni said, "The demons, headed by Hiranyakashipu, accepted Shukracharya as their priest for ritualistic ceremonies. Shukracharya's 2 sons, Shanda and Amarka, lived near Hiranyakashipu's palace."
Prahlad Maharaj was already educated in devotional life, but when his father sent him to those 2 sons of Shukracharya to be educated, they accepted him at their school along with the other sons of the Asuras.
Prahlad certainly heard and recited the topics of politics and economics taught by the teachers, but he understood that political philosophy involves considering someone a friend and someone else an enemy, and thus he did not like it.
My dear King Yudhishthir, once upon a time the king of the demons, Hiranyakashipu, took his son Prahlad on his lap and very affectionately inquired, "My dear son, please let me know what you think is the best of all the subjects you have studied from your teachers."
Read the translation first, and then we'll.
Prahlad Maharaj replied, "O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and a temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well, where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest. Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God."
That's my husband. I'm not sure why he started laughing at the temporary household life part. The deep dark. What happened yesterday? So yes, this is a very pivotal point in the Bhagavatam, right? This what Prahlad Maharaj says. So let's chant the Sanskrit, and then we'll go further into it. Shri Prahlad Uvacha Tatsadu Manye Suravarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Diyam Asadgrahat Yitvat Matpatam Grihamandakupam Vanam Gatoya Darim Ashrayeta. Please chant. Shri Prahlad Uvacha Tatsadu Manye Suravarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Diyam Asadgrahat Itvatmapatam Grihamandakupam Vanam Gato Yadarima Shri Prahlad Uvacha Dasa Mudvigna Diyam Asadgrahat Idvadmapatam Grihamandakupam Vanam gatoya darima sharita. Haribo. Shri Prahladu vacha. Tatsadu manye suravarya dehinam. Sadasa mudvigna diyam asadgrahat. Idvadma patam grihamandakupam. Vanam gatoya darima shrayita. Shri Prahladu vacha. Tatsadu manye suravarya dehinam. Sada samudvigna diyam asadgrahat. Itvat papatam grihamandakupam. Vanam gatoya darima shrayita. Haribol. All right, let's move on to synonyms. There are quite a lot of them. It's a very wordy verse, but we'll say them together since we can all see them together on the screen. Shri Prahlad uvacha. Prahlad Maharaj replied, Tat, that, sadhu, very good, or the best part of life. Manye, I think, Asura Varya, O king of the Asuras, Dehinam, of persons who have accepted the material body. Sada, always, Samud Vigna, full of anxieties. Niyam, whose intelligence, Asat Grahat, because of accepting the temporary body or bodily relations as real, thinking I am this body and everything belonging to this body is mine. Hitva, giving up. Atma Patam, the place where spiritual culture or self-realization is stopped. Griham, the bodily concept of life or household life. Anda Kupam, which is nothing but a blind well where there is no water, but one nonetheless searches for water. Vanam, to the forest. Gata, going. Yet, which. Harim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ashriyata, may take shelter of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, O king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water, but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest, Vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Hiranyakashipu thought that Prahlad, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlad Maharaj, however, being an exalted devotee, had acquired all the qualities of education. Yashyati bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarver gunaish tatra samaste sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena sati davato bahi. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Bhagavatam 5.18.12. So-called educated philosophers and scientists who are simply on the mental platform cannot distinguish between what is actually sat, eternal, and what is asat, temporary. The Vedic injunction is asato ma jyotirgama. Everyone should give up the platform of temporary existence and approach the eternal platform. The soul is eternal, and topics concerning the eternal soul are actually knowledge. Elsewhere it is said, apashyatam atma tattvam griheshu griha medhinam. Those who are attached to the bodily conception of life and who thus stick to life as a grihasta or householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. Prahlad Maharaj confirmed this by saying that if one wants success in life, he should immediately understand from the right sources what his self-interest is and how he should mold his life in spiritual consciousness. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in the material world is in the bodily conception, struggling hard for existence, life after life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommended that to stop this material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest, vana. In the varnashram system, one first becomes a brahmachari, then a grihasta, a vanaprastha, and finally a sannyasi. Going to the forest means accepting a vanaprastha life, which is between grihasta life and sannyas. As confirmed in the Vishnu Purana 3.8.9, Varnashra charavata purushena para pumam vishnur aradyate. By accepting the institution of varna and ashram, one can very easily elevate himself to the platform of worshipping Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, if one remains in the bodily conception, one must rot within this material world, and his life will be a failure. Society must have divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and for spiritual advancement, one must gradually develop as a brahmachari, grihasta, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. Prahlad Maharaj recommended that his father accept vanaprastha life because as a grihasta, he was becoming increasingly demoniac due to bodily attachment. Prahlad recommended to his father that accepting vanaprastha life would be better than going deeper and deeper into griham anda kupam, the blind well of life as a grihasta. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore invite all the elderly persons of the world to come to Vrindavan and stay there in retired life, making advancement in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. Haribol. All right. So this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam brings out two cultures. One, the culture of anxiety, exemplified by Hiranyakashipu. The culture of anxiety is a world steeped in fear, ambition, and struggle. And two, the culture of satisfaction, which is exemplified by Prahlad Maharaj, who by his very nature is joyful, fearless, and content in Krishna consciousness. And from the moment that Prahlad Maharaj is introduced in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see this striking truth that his teachers confess, we didn't make him this way. He was born like this. He is naturally like this. In fact, we can't influence him at all. He's naturally this way. And his name, Prahlad, means one who is exceedingly joyful or one who brings great joy. It's from I find it interesting, it's derived from the Sanskrit root words, and forgive me, I know my Sanskrit pronunciation is not up to par, but the first word, first part, pra, means very or excessively, and hlad, we recognize that, right? Like hladini shakti, hlad means joy, delight. So why was Prahlad always joyful, always happy? Who can say? Thank you, Mother Kunti. He was seeing Krishna constantly. And Krishna is the reservoir of pleasure. There we go. Hladini. And how is he able to see Krishna everywhere? Because he was self-realized. He knew who he really was. He didn't identify as a prince, the son of this great king, but rather Jiver Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. The living entity's constitutional position is that of eternal servant of Krishna. So unlike ordinary people who get disturbed by happiness and distress, Prahlad was nirapeksha, indifferent to material conditions. Prahlad understood that true happiness comes from serving and remembering Krishna, not from material pleasures or avoiding suffering. In Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, verse 3, Prahlad Maharaj says, Sukham aindriyakam daitya deha yogena dehinam sarvatra labhyate daivad yatha dukham ayatnataha. My dear friends, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. So Prahlad is always peaceful and joyful because he doesn't identify at all with the material conditions going on around him. But look at the contrast. Today, when someone is peaceful, they are called lazy, right? When someone is content, they are labeled as unambitious. How dare they want to stay where they are? And society glorifies stress. The modern world tells us that you must be busy, overworked, anxious, running after money, power, prestige. If you're not restless, you're not achieving anything. And you should never settle. You should never be content with what you have. You should strive to have more than what you have now. You should strive to have a bigger house, a newer car, a higher salary. You can't be content. That's ridiculous. If you aren't constantly chasing something, then you must be failing. Yet who is actually happy? Hiranyakashipu had everything. He had so many beautiful women. He had power, he had wealth, he had influence. He was the most influential living being at that time. But he was in deep anxiety. He was a deeply unhappy, miserable person. Prahlad was 100% satisfied 100% of the time. It is interesting to see how bluntly Prahlad Maharaj speaks to his father in this verse. He doesn't tread lightly. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't say, like the most practical thing maybe I learned in school today is math. However, above that, Father, is, spiritual knowledge. And then nor does he say, Father, it's okay. Just add a little Krishna to your demoniac life. He says, give it all up right now, go to the forest. He boldly declares the fundamental truth, and it's explored further later, that there is no happiness in this world. And he did that because this is the first truth that one has to accept before becoming Krishna conscious. One has to has to accept that this is not my real home. This is a place of suffering. And then when we make that shift in consciousness, then we can say, okay, then where do I belong and how do I get back there? Bhagavad Gita 2.44 explains that those attached to material enjoyment cannot develop determination, bhakti. This is the greatest illusion, thinking that happiness will come by improving our material conditions. We chase after our material desires, thinking they will satisfy us, but instead they bring us more anxiety. Hiranyakashipu thought his peace, his happiness lay in acquiring more and more and having absolute material control. But the more he acquired, the more fearful and distressed he became, the more paranoid he became. He wanted immortality in a mortal body, an impossible contradiction. He gained ultimate power, but he lived in constant fear of losing it. How is this any different from modern life? So Hiranyakashipu, we can see, he really represents the materialist's dilemma. The very things we think will make us happy become the cause of our suffering. People buy expensive cars to show them off, and then they're afraid to drive them because they don't want to put too much mileage on the car, and they don't want to park it in a regular parking lot where someone can scratch it, but they worked so hard to get that fancy sports car. People purchase or they build mansions, but then they're afraid of them being burglarized. People work hard for promotions, but they end up being buried in more stress. People hoard wealth, but they never feel secure. No one thinks they have enough money. But people today are trapped in the same contradiction as Hiranyakashipu. We buy things we can't enjoy because we fear losing them. We chase success, but we find no peace once we actually achieve success. We seek control over life, yet we remain helpless against time and death. But despite Hiranyakashipu's misery, society still glorifies this lifestyle, pursuing power, wealth, and control as if they will bring happiness. But Prahlad saw through this illusion, and he's trying to tell his father, real happiness is only found in surrender to the Lord. Hiranyakashipu didn't just reject devotion, he tried to eliminate it. He wanted to eradicate it. He systematically worked to destroy everything related to God. He tried to eliminate the Brahmins, the Vedas, the Yagyas, and the religious gurukuls. He wanted to create a society where there was no room for Krishna. Is this not what is happening today? The media tries to remove all references to God, making him seem irrelevant. Society forces us into a cutthroat lifestyle where there's no time for bhakti. And schools, what do they boast about? They boast about their facilities, their technology, the percentage of students that go on to four-year universities. But do they say, our students graduate without bad habits like drinking or smoking? Or within 5 years of graduation, 80% of our students take first initiation from a bona fide spiritual master? No. Srila Prabhupada was very clear about this. He called modern schools slaughterhouses. Why? Because they kill the soul. They train children to be good workers, good consumers, but never good devotees. The goal is to make them chase money and success, not self-realization. They don't teach self-control. Instead, students learn from each other to escape stress through smoking, drinking, and sense gratification. Hiranyakashipu wanted to create a society where Krishna is forgotten, and today modern society is doing exactly that. Prahlad was forced into such a school, right? Yet he remained unaffected because of the strength of his bhakti. But most of us cannot say the same. Srila Prabhupada once said famously that spiritual life is difficult, but material life is impossible. It's difficult. Spiritual life is difficult because the world moves against bhakti. We're swimming upstream against the current. Everything is designed to make us forget Krishna: society, media, education, and the relentless pursuit of material success. We live in an environment that constantly pushes us toward materialism and asks us to compromise our principles. Sometimes people may even think, okay, like what's the harm in mixing some sense gratification with devotion? Can't I enjoy it just a little bit of material life and still be a devotee? But Prahlad shows us that fire and water can't mix. Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill Vishnu. Prahlad wanted to see Vishnu everywhere. There's no middle ground. I listened to a class by His Grace Govinda Prabhu. I don't know how many of you know him, of Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Mandir Iskon Chopati. Very special soul, very inspiring. But in his class, he said that this is the most dangerous mentality that a devotee can have: the conflicting attachment to both Krishna and the material world. And in that class, he shared his native language is Kannada, and he shared this saying that's in Kannada. It goes, "It takes a long time to make a clay pot, but how much time does it take to break it?" 1 second, right? I know Tulsi Saki, our beloved Tulsi Saki, is listening to this class online. One of her hobbies is pottery. But if you've ever made a pot, you got to get the right kind of clay and you put it on the wheel and then you add the water, but maybe now the pot's gotten too thin and you can't support it, so then you got to add more clay, but now it's too dry, and so you have to add more water, and then you have to keep your hands really even to get it sculpted smooth, and then when finally that's done, then you dry it, and then you have to sand it, then you glaze it, then you put it in the kiln. So much time goes into shaping and making this pot. But how much time does it take to break it? Just 1 second. 1 second of carelessness. You knock it over and it's broken. So our bhakti is the same. One moment of carelessness, one moment of deciding, well, maybe it's not so bad. We can lose everything. Srila Prabhupada said that, his Western disciples are not sufficiently afraid of Maya. So obviously I'm speaking to myself here. But Prabhupada also, he said that what can start as a small indulgence can eventually, over time, overtake all of our spiritual focus. Srila Prabhupada compared it to watering the weeds along with watering a plant. Eventually, the weeds will choke the plant. We can think, what are our weeds? The desire for material success at the cost of spiritual progress, the need for social approval over Krishna's approval, the urge to fit into the world instead of standing firm in our principles. Prahlad Maharaj, we celebrate him because he refused to compromise his devotion even when faced with intense pressure. What gave him the strength to stand firm? His strength came from choosing his association carefully and avoiding anything that weakened his Krishna consciousness. He's very kind to his demon classmates. He's very respectful to his father, but he doesn't intimately associate with them. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25-25 emphasizes the importance of devotee association. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha. In the association of devotees, discussions of my glories are very pleasing and satisfying to the heart. Imagine a powerful river. If you try to swim against the current, it's extremely difficult. You might even drown. But if you grab onto a strong rope, you can hold on. You can stay where you are and not be sucked away. So sadhu sangha is that rope. When we associate with devotees, we experience true satisfaction of the heart. And that will curb our desire to go out and engage in sense gratification or get that mistaken belief that happiness is elsewhere. If we hold on to the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, to our spiritual master, and to Shastra, then we won't drown in material life. Without devotee association and guidance from a spiritual master, though, it is guaranteed that we will drift away. But the good news is, as the Chaitanya Charitamrita famously declares, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastre Kai, Lava Matra Sadhu Sange Sarva Siddhi Hai. Even a moment's association with a pure devotee can grant perfection. So to avoid compromise, we just have to strengthen our spiritual roots. Prioritize sadhu sangha, protect our minds from material distractions, just being mindful of what we consume, what we engage in, and what influences us. And be fearless like Prahlad. Well, take inspiration from him. Just to reject worldly allurements and stand firm in what we know to be true, what we have learned from the Shastra. Hiranyakashipu wanted to create a world where Krishna was forgotten, but Prahlad refused to let go of Krishna. Sometimes we hear people think, maybe they hear about our regulated lifestyle, or they hear extreme kind of stories like Prahlad's, and they may say, well, if this is what it takes to be a devotee, better I be a materialist. But the truth is that only devotees live without anxiety. Materialists live in fear of losing their power, wealth, beauty, youth, and control. But devotees rest in Krishna's hands. Just some parting thoughts. I was thinking, Hiranyakashipu, he died on the seat of his power. What he thought would make him happy became the cause of his death. And this is the fate of all materialists. So we have to make a choice to live in the line of the sampradaya of Hiranyakashipu, right, of material anxiety, fighting against the reality, trying to become the controller, and then dying in anxiety, or follow sampradaya of Prahlad Maharaj, to surrender to Krishna, to be fearless in devotion, to be always satisfied. We can't change the direction of the world, but we can change how we engage in it, what we choose to, sometimes you get these emails, these spam emails, and there's always that little button at the bottom where it's like opt out here. So we always have the choice when these things are coming at us. I'm just going to opt out, right? I'm going to remove that from my inbox because I don't actually want to see it. And that choice is the difference between living in fear or living in joy. I'm going to turn the floor over to you in just a moment, but I want to point out, since we're hearing so much about Prahlad, the screen is off, but back on this screen later will be a promotion for, we're having, Nrsimha Chaturdashi is on May 10th, and we're having a wonderful play on Saturday, May 10th, and Sunday, May 11th at 7:30 p.m. The show starts at 7:30. Upstairs in the theater, and it is an incredible production. I am part of it. It was written by Sri Nrsimha Kavach Prabhu, who was born and raised in this community. It's directed by Draupadi Devi, also born and raised in this community. The script is phenomenal. I mean, these devotees are so empowered. And so definitely put that on your calendar to attend. There's something very special about theater as opposed to seeing a movie. Because when you go to the theater, you have this, it's called suspension of disbelief. The audience has to make an internal agreement within themselves that they're going to accept whatever happens on that stage. Like nobody's going to complain about the backdrop or whatever. Whereas in a movie, you're always like, oh, that special effect was like not so great. But in the theater, there's the suspension of disbelief, and you can feel the energy of the actors. And so seeing this pastime come alive, it will enter your heart and it will enter your consciousness. So please, everybody, come to that. The admission is free, and it is truly wonderful. All right, Hare Krishna. I'd love to hear from you all any thoughts or reflections or maybe even some questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there's kind of this, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but there's this always question that I have when I hear about sense gratification that, for example, there's a quote where Srila Prabhupada says, a fall down means a gap of 1,000,000 years, or different things we're saying, like, your bhakti will be destroyed, your bhakti will be ruined, or like the elephant offense, like it doesn't freeze the bhakti creeper, it stomps on it, squishes it, and it's like a paste on the ground now. So I hear both that, like, spiritual life is like a razor's edge. And then I hear at the same time, oh, Krishna carries what we lack and preserves what we have. Krishna will protect us in the greatest type of fear. Krishna will, he like freezes our bhakti at offenses and things like that. So, yeah, I kind of try to understand these different statements in different contexts.
Would anybody like to answer that? It's not me. I'm not sure I fully understand the question that you're asking. You're expressing that Krishna preserves what we have and carries what we lack. So then how is it kind of possible to slide all the way off the cliff by indulging in a little sense gratification?
Yeah, it seems like there's kind of two moods that I see sometimes, where it's like, if you, indulge, then it'll get worse, and then you'll, like you said, your bhakti will be finished. Or Srila Prabhupada says a gap of 1,000,000 years. And then at the same time, I see another mood where it's saying, oh, just add Krishna, or, Krishna will fill the gaps or whatever.
Well, my understanding is when you just add Krishna, you're doing what you're doing, and then you just add Krishna. Your attachment to Krishna gets stronger over time, and because that's Krishna's mercy, that you get more attached to this little bit of Krishna you're adding to your life, and you're spending more time with devotees, and eventually that little bit of Krishna becomes a more medium Krishna you're adding to your life, and then it becomes more Krishna and more Krishna and more Krishna, and it expands. So you start with just a little Krishna. And conversely, the sense gratification, taking shelter of, the materialistic pursuits is the same. You just add a little bit of materialism. And then that grows to medium materialism. And then that grows to more materialism. So it really is about the choices that we're making. We're taking a step towards Krishna, then you're automatically stepping away from the material energy. And if you take a step towards the materialism, you're taking a step away from Krishna. That is how I understand it. Is that okay? Prabhupada Priya.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, you made it sound a little black and white. And I also kind of like internally reacted to the part about the pot breaking, you know, like it's over, you know, like one little thing, 1 second, like you can cultivate your bhakti for lifetimes and, you know, put so much energy to it, and one little slip and it's over, it's done. So, I mean, that can happen, you know, especially when we commit offenses. But I was reminded of a verse that's, I looked it up. It's 10:2:33. So it's talking about how when devotees may fall down. Prabhupada writes I'll read the verse. He's saying, O Madhava, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees, for still you protect them. Thus they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. And Prabhupada says, devotees generally do not fall down, but if circumstantially they do, the Lord, because of their strong attachment to Him, gives them protection in all circumstances. And then he gives the example of Bharat Maharaj, you know, that he basically stopped his sadhana, and he was, even though he was on the platform of bhava, but he got attached to the deer, and then, but Krishna protected him because he gave him full consciousness even in the deer body, and then took birth as Jad Bharat, and then he went back to Godhead. He also gives the example of Chitraketu, who made an offense against Lord Shiva. We just heard all about it, right? And then he was cursed to become a Vritrasura. So he became a demon, but then he went back to Godhead. So we see that, you know, that devotees, you know, within our society, they have practiced a lot of devotional service, and then they have some slip-ups, and they leave the association devotees. They may get totally into material life. They may, you know, break relative principles, stop chanting. But somehow or other, Krishna makes an arrangement, you know, to bring them back into the fold and renew their practice of sadhana with enthusiasm. And so, the pot can break, but it can also be put back together. So, and whereas, but the thing is that we need some help. You know, like when the pot's broken, it can't put itself back together. Someone's got to come along and find the pieces and get the glue out and like that. So Krishna makes arrangements that we can come in contact with devotees and situations where we can get our pot back in shape, the pot of our spiritual lives. So, does that answer the question, Krista, a little bit? So the mad elephant offense is there. We can, you know, we can make an offense, and our bhakti lakta can be crushed, and we can lose our taste for chanting and hearing and everything, service, and just totally go away. But there's still something there. It's not all lost. You know, otherwise what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita would not be true when he says nehabhigamanashasti pratyavayo nividyate. That has to be true too. Right? That there's no loss or diminution. So there's something that's still there. And the essence of it is still there, and it just has to, Krishna will make an arrangement to bring us back, and then we can pick up where we left off. Thank you.
When we are drifting away, like the point Mataji you made, Krishna still preserves what we have. But we are drifting away. He tried to pull us back. Sometimes he lets us back in easy way. But if we don't listen properly, then he teaches us in a hard way. Yeah. But still, ultimately, he preserves what we have and he brings us back. Right. And that hard way could feel like a completely
hitting bottom.
Yeah. Getting to the bottom. But still, he's holding us. You know. Right. Yeah. So. Thank you. Yeah.
So you quoted Govinda Prabhu, and I was thinking, any realized souls, including Srila Prabhupada, Acharyas, and for that matter, our scriptures, Govinda Prabhu always says, and this has always stayed in my heart, our scriptures are contextual. They are never textual, like Bible or Quran, they always say they're textual, either this or that. So everything has to be taken in relation to the context. So if you analyze the scriptures, if you analyze the quotes of Acharyas and the quotes of realized souls, at one point they say the tallest order, what is expected out of. The expectations are, they need to be given, what is expected out of you. And then the reality, the practical sense. So you will find such statements which seem to be really harsh, somewhere, and somewhere else you will find very leniency, like Bhagavad Gita, Neya Vikramanashasti, so on and so forth. We can go on quoting so many such verses. So why this is there? Because if you analyze, the material world is comprising of three modes, and it is never either goodness, passion, or ignorance. It is always the different shades, 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by, so on and so forth. So each and every individual has acquired a certain shade, and it's not exclusively that particular shade. There are various shades. So there are different kinds of people. And scriptures, when they're coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they have to appeal each and every individual, not just a particular class, the pure devotees. Even the bottommost should have the access. And that's why we see Prabhupada sometimes he says, practicing devotional service is like driving a vehicle. Little bit of inattention. All of us we have seen, right? If you're driving on a highway, little bit of inattention can cause havoc. So that's also a fact. And at the same time, if you just follow the codes and the protocols properly, then you attain your destination.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Very nice class. I was thinking, sometimes we need a good shake, right? We need to be told by Prahlad and by your class that material life isn't where it's at, right? We do have a choice. I heard very early in my Krishna consciousness by a devotee. She's a Tamal Krishna Goswami disciple, which I didn't even understand at the time. This was like 20 years ago, but she said, really, there's only two choices in life. We either face Krishna or face away from Krishna. And if we face away from Krishna, it's so ugly, so hard, so tough. Death, old age, disease, and birth, right? And so every once in a while we need to hear, hey, that's not where it's at. So I appreciate your class very much in that sense, that a nice shake-up. If I may ask a question, I was also thinking of the apparent contradictions in Scripture. And Prahlad's saying right here, hey, give up everything and go to the forest.
Right.
But yet in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's up there saying, Krishna, let me just go to the forest. Let me renounce grihastha life. Let me renounce being a kshatriya. But yet there's two different instructions right here being given. Arjuna said, no, or been told to stay, fight, do your duty. And Hiranyakashipu is being told, no, go to the forest, go to Vrindavan.
Right. Yeah. I was waiting for someone to bring that up, especially as a grihasta when I hear these kind of verses, with like take sannyas, the family life is dragging you down. As Gokulananda Prabhu, it's always contextual. So what I have heard explained is, so there are two types of householders described in the scriptures. There's the grihastas and there's the grihamedis. And Hiranyakashipu is grihamedi, where he's living in this family situation, but he's not at all elevating his spiritual consciousness. Because the whole point, as also mentioned in the purport, is to become a brahmachari, and then from a brahmachari to become a grihasta and fulfill your responsibilities there, raising other devotees, acting as a shelter for your family members, and then you leave them and you focus solely on your own spiritual practice in the latter half of your life. But that's a proper grihasta. And the grihamedi is one who joins the Grihastha ashram but gets totally lost in all of the sense gratification that can come from that, and maybe material pressures too, as well. And the other thing I've heard explained here is that Prahlad Maharaj gives his father an extreme instruction because his father is acting in extremes. Because his father is trying to kill Lord Vishnu. Like, he's not just like smoking with his friends after dinner, you know what I mean? So Prahlad gives him an extreme example. Like, there's no hope for you in elevating yourself in this kingdom, king of everything situation. You need to give it all up and go to the forest.
At the end of the Kurukshetra war, Vidra says, why are you still attached? Can't you see what's happening to your children and all? So, and you're still hankering for something. Now just leave and go to forest after all that. Yeah, so.
Thank you so much. If I'm also remembering Duryodhana's given the instruction by his uncle at the same time, go to the forest, because this understanding that they don't know what their duty is. And that's what I'm really hearing for you is somebody who doesn't know their duty, know how to, yes, go to the forest. Stop causing trouble. But those persons who are like Arjuna, who know their duty, know religion, know principles of the Vedas, they should be very much encouraged to do their duty. Thank you so much. Wonderful answer.
They need to serve.
Let me say this in 10 words since we're almost over. There's a difference in sense gratificatory pursuit of premeditated and accidental. Yeah. That's all.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, in answer also to Nanda Braj's question, and you kind of brought this out, Manjari Gopika. Prabhupada writes in the purport that Prahlad Maharaj recommended that his father accept Vanaprastha life because as a Grihastha he was becoming increasingly demoniac due to bodily attachment. So, yeah, we can look at our own situations and see, you know, am I becoming increasingly attached in this ashram, you know, in Grihastha ashram? And, you know, if so, then maybe we need to start cultivating detachment. So that was, yeah, he was becoming increasingly attached to the body, to the, you know, bodily relationships, to the comforts of the body, the facilities for the body, because that's what Grihastha ashram, that's what it is. It's all about that. And so that's why it's called the dark well. And so as devotees, you know, we try to switch on the lights in the well, but it's still a well. It's still a well. I mean, every Grihastha has to admit that. I went to Grihastha ashram. It's like, because as soon as you get into the Grihastha life, it's like immediately you become kind of like inward looking, right? The focus is on my wife, my husband, my children, my job, my financial situation, my home, you know, the yard, the garden, the maintenance. You know, it's a little inward looking, more so than when you're a brahmachari and you're going out in book distribution every day, going out in the harinams, doing service at the temple. So it's different. It becomes like a little enclosed. You're like in a little like enclosure there. And so the difference between Grihamedi and Grihastha is that in the Grihastha ashram, there's light on in the well, and there's also some water there, because you're practicing Krishna consciousness, and you're getting some juice, you're getting some, you know, nectar from practicing Krishna consciousness with your family, but you're still in a well, and it's difficult to get out. So yeah, you need a lot of support. And there's also things to look forward to after Grihastha ashram, getting out of the well and being free to, you know, get back into outward looking and spreading Krishna consciousness without having to worry about, you know, the kids and the husband and the wife and the house and the garden and the bills. And, yeah.
You're like so excited. Thank you for this advertisement for Vanaprastha ashram, Prabhupada Priya. She's living it. Gokulananda Prabhu is also looking forward to Vanaprastha.
I was also thinking about how we have been given a safety net in the form of safety net.
Safety net.
Safety net. So safety net is of not just the Shastra, the scriptures, but there is also Guru and Sadhu. So if we just imagine we didn't have Guru and Sadhu as the authority, then anybody and everybody would have just quoted the scriptures, and then there would have been a chaotic condition.
Right.
So I was also thinking the example given by one of my godbrothers. He said, if a 5-year-old child approaches his father asking, Father, Father, what happens to the food that we eat? So there will be a very short answer, probably, okay, it's digested and then next day it is out. But if the same question is asked by a 15-year-old, then he has to give a deeper answer. He has to give the analytical answer. So similarly, any such quotes we extract out of the scriptures, we have to take it to the authority, other authorities, Guru and Sadhus, who have been practicing it for several years. So they have digested, the philosophy along with their experiences and realizations. So then there will be, as per the status or as per the consciousness of the person, there will be the equivalent answer. So
Thank you. And Lalita Sundari wanted to say something before we close.
Thank you for nice class, Mataji. Always well organized. I always have a take-home lesson to use it in my day-to-day life.
Thank you.
Several thoughts were going through my mind when you're giving class. I'll try to put it in a coherent way. I think you were comparing the current world, this current situation to how it was Hiranyakashipu. So I have 2 questions based on that. One is, I don't see any difference like how Hiranyakashipu have had a concerted effort to destroy Brahminical culture, to take everybody's mind away from Krishna, destroy our moral values. He was doing everything opposite to Sanatana Dharma. And we, like you mentioned, exact same thing is happening in the current world. But we always think Hiranyakashipu is the most dangerous ruler we ever had. But now we see Hiranyakashipus all over the place. But Hiranyakashipu had a very strong agenda because Hiranyaksha was killed and he wanted to kill Vishnu. But here people, I'm not sure with what agenda it started. Is it Kali Yuga has planted the seed of Hiranyakashipu in everybody's mind? So there seem to be many more Hiranyakashipus with much stronger concerted effort to drag us all away from Krishna. And like you told, it becomes so difficult for us, like we are swimming against the stream. And for us ourselves to swim against the stream and to educate our children, because outside world they see exactly opposite what we are Prabhupada is trying to teach us, and for us to teach our kids. And this concerted effort is happening. So I'm just curious, where does this strong seed come? Hiranyakashipu had this strong seed because Hiranyaksha was killed and he wanted to kill Vishnu. So is it just something planted by the effect of Kali Yuga? That's one question. Another question is, when Hiranyakashipu was making all these things, the demigods went to Brahma, they went to Vishnu, and they begged for protection. So now why demigods are quiet? Is it because their position is not threatened? That's why. So, or because there is no Prahlad among us for Hiranyakashipu to come out, for Narsimadev to come out of the pillar and kill all these Hiranyakashipus. So I'm just curious, how did this seed of concerted effort is going on, and why nobody in the upper planetary systems are not worried about it and taken action?
Lalita Sundari, Bhagavatam, you're so intelligent. It's quite daunting to answer your question. Well, your first question is, you were pointing out that Hiranyakashipu had an agenda. He had vengeance. His brother was killed by Lord Vishnu. He had this bodily attachment to his brother. Something done to his brother is something done against him. Now he hates Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu has to go. And in fact, I'm going to make sure nobody else worships him, right? And then, the question is, when we see this kind of atheism so prevalent in today's society, what is their agenda? Is that? Well, I think that differs person to person. I think there are people that are envious of God, who think that they are so intelligent and they should be worshipped, so they need to convince everybody else there is no God. And look how smart and wonderful I am, and I can teach you how to live your life. There is no God. But I also think it's just the influence of Kali Yuga. As we know, the demons used to live on other planets, and then they were in other countries, and now they live within our hearts. And I think it's the influence of Kali Yuga. And what was the second? The second question was,
May I interject?
Oh, I've asked that question so many times to so many people. So many horrible things are going on, and you hear of even like in Bangladesh and devotees, the temples being destroyed, and all they're trying to do is worship. Like, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? I mean, one answer is that the Lord, obviously, he comes based on his own timing. He's going to descend kind of when he has decided that he's going to, and that's in the scriptures. And then other answers have varied. Gokulananda Prabhu, I know I've asked you this, and you asked, what was his name? Radhika Raman Prabhu, that question? And I don't remember much of his answer. It was so mind-blowing, I can't really remember it. But he basically said that if we understand that Krishna often acts out of mercy, and we understand also that Krishna acts out of justice, then we also have to accept that we cannot predict or determine why he isn't here and say, oh, Krishna clearly isn't carrying out justice, when we know that he does. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say, knowing and unknowing, a lot of these events are happening because they don't know. It's not that they know, they looked it up. Oh, let's follow Hiranyakashipu. That's not what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar in regard to the first question, that it's just so much mode of ignorance, the modes of passion and ignorance. People are so covered by passion and ignorance, and Krishna says that they don't know what's to be done and what's not to be done, and they go in the wrong direction. So it may not be that they're evil and they're like on a vendetta to, abolish religion and to kill God, but they're just ignorant. They're just ignorant fools, and they might even think that this is the way to be happy in life. Like when we become devotees, and then our materialistic parents are like, what are you doing? This is a big mistake. No, you need to invest in your career and make money and be happy. Like they actually want the best. They think that's the best for us, and they think that, devoting life to, devotional service to Krishna is going to destroy us. It's going to be the end of our happiness. So it's just ignorance. And then the second part was Nrsingadev not coming and killing these demons, because Lord Chaitanya has appeared and he's given the holy name, and Kali Kali Nama Rupa Krishna Avatar. He's here. He's here. He doesn't need to come again. He's here. He's with us. And it's just like when Krishna came, when he appeared in Vrindavan, there was so many demons at that time, right? The earth was burdened by the weight of all these demons. And so he started killing them. It took some time, it took some time, 125 years for him to polish off the demons. So so it's a gradual process. And as we continue chanting the holy names and spreading the holy names, and ISKCON is slowly growing and having more impact on the world, and kirtan is taking off even, in secular society, then things are going to change. The demoniac mentality is less. It's going to be less the predominant mentality as the chanting of the holy names expands. So.
We're at the tip of the iceberg, just the beginning of Kali Yuga. We haven't seen anything yet. Still, like yesterday, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu was telling in the class, we still have some effect of previous Yuga where Krishna just left. That was, Nityan Prabhu was telling in the class yesterday morning. It was just 5,000 years ago. And we still have some of those effect for 10% of the Kali Yuga. That means next 43,000 years. And the remaining is going to be much worse. So, and one of the classes I heard, the Hiranyakashipu is nothing like the demons we have right now. He's far, far, far superior in every way. Yeah, he's
Absolutely.
much. Yeah. Even demigods were shivering and shaking. The demons we have that they're trying to destroy the Sanatana Dharma is no way close to Hiranyakashipu.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're over time. Thank you all so much for your participation. Thank you for tolerating me. Srimad Bhagavatam ki